Welcome to How Do They Afford That, the podcast that peeks into the financial lives of everyday Australians. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm a writer and co-host of the Fear and Greed business podcast. And as always, I'm with Canna Campbell. Previously a financial planner, now the founder of Sugar Mama TV, the financial literacy platform covering YouTube, podcasts, Instagram, books, and more. Canna, you're very busy. What have you been up to this week?
This week, I moved house. Technically last week I moved house. And oh my goodness, the life admin that gets thrown your way with, changing your address everywhere. We also we refinanced. So changing direct debits and card details and oh my goodness. And just when you think you've got all of them done, you then check the old account and see that, no, you've still got other repayments coming out. So I feel like I'm drowning in paperwork. How about you?
We moved about 3 years ago. I discovered this week, and this is perfect timing, the fact that you mentioned this. I discovered this week that I hadn't changed my address with one of our banks. So I only realised this when my new bank cards didn't turn up a week ago. And it turns out they have been sending everything to my old house for the last 3 years. That's a lot of financial information, a lot of personal data, and now 2 FBOS cards that are sitting in someone else's mailbox.
Didn't anyone do a return to sender? Oh my goodness.
Apparently not. When we moved and we got the former residence mail, I sent everything on. I actually contacted them, found out their new address and kind of passed it on to the old owners and where they now lived. Maybe I'm just too nice.
I think potentially the people who moved into your old house are just lazy or that's just rude.
Yeah, I was shocked. Anyway, enough about me. As you're listening today, please know that anything we talk about is always general in nature. It's never personal, investment, strategic, or product advice. It is purely for educational purposes only.
We don't know anything about your financial situation, your financial goals, your deadlines for those goals, or even your risk profile. So should you ever hear something we're talking about and you think, oh, I wonder if I should be doing this as well, that is when you must go and talk to a financial planner and ask them for personal advice based on your financial situation and your financial goals.
Today we're talking about the kids and about investing for the kids. How did they cope with the move, first of all?
My daughter is missing the old house. She said she wanted to go home and have dinner the other night at the old house.
Oh.
So, and we haven't moved far. We've literally moved 350 metres away. So she has that temptation of still being able to see the old house. So that's my middle child who's about to turn 3. So she's probably coping the least. Yeah. My son is quite enjoying having a little bit more space, and my 10-month-year-old couldn't tell the difference.
No, they really don't at that age, do they? No, I remember when we moved, our son would have been about the same age, about kind of just under 3, and we made the mistake of taking him back with us the day after we moved to do a final clean out. I've never seen anything so sad. Him standing in an empty room, just looking around, and he just could not figure out what was going on. Why this was the place that he used to know and learnt to crawl and to walk and everything in, and now it was empty. And just the look on his face, I felt so bad about that. Anyway, 3 years on, I'm not quite over that one yet. I'm pretty sure he is. Anyway, investing for your kids. Is this something that you should be kind of thinking about as soon as you have kids, before you have kids, even kind of when you're thinking about starting a family? And is it something that you can leave too late? Is it ever too late to start investing for kids?
Well, it's never ever too late to start investing, but it really boils down to what's obviously important for you. And for compounding interest to work its magic, the more time that you give it, the better. And obviously, as we all know, kids have got plenty of time. But one thing I will definitely point out, it is never worth jeopardizing your own financial well-being just for your kids. Because I remember as a financial planner talking to people who were so concerned about investing for their children and them never be able to get their foot in the door of the property market or how they'd ever pay for school fees and so forth. And they were putting their own financial well-being at jeopardy because they were so overwhelmed and anxious about the children. They were forgetting about themselves. So it's about balance. And for example, myself, and general advice only in educational purposes, I'm sharing this, but my children each have a small investment portfolio, but it's very small because at the end of the day, I need to make sure I can make our mortgage repayments and put food on the table. So if there is something left over at the end of the day, yes, I can top up their investment portfolios for them. But if there's not, I don't sweat it. But yes, they do have something, and I use it as an educational tool more than here's a lump sum of money when you finish school or when you finish university, or help pay for this and that. It's really an educational tool. So my son is about to turn 9, and he sits on my lap and looks at his investment portfolio, and I use it as a tool to educate him, because that is more valuable than that small investment portfolio.
I've never thought of it like that. I suppose I'm stuck in a time gone by where kids weren't really involved in money decisions. And that is something that probably needs to be changed immediately, because the more you involve them in that and the education, the smarter and the more savvy they will be with that as they get older.
Absolutely. I mean, you're giving them a gift which serves them for the rest of their lives. And it means that if you can teach a child, and you don't necessarily, by the way, need to be a genius at money, but just talking to children about money in an empowering, enlightening way, you are giving them, and even if you have to show by example, by getting things wrong and explaining, obviously we don't want to overwhelm my children with financial stress and worries, but involving them with a healthy boundary and in an educational, empowering way, you are going to make them smart with money, and they will therefore have less financial stress in their lives. And hopefully, if they really want to take a career path which say doesn't earn them much money, but they're really passionate about it, that's okay, because they know how to manage their money, and vice versa. They know how to build money. They know how to protect money. They know how to take care of their families when they have it. It's so incredibly important. They know how to give more money to charity, which is a big one people forget about.
And your 9-year-old could end up being better at picking stocks than you are. And then you've suddenly got a meal ticket for the rest of your life.
Every now and again, my son gives me a lecture in the car about money, like especially if I want to go and buy something like, a chocolatey treat, and he'll say, hang on, you bought one yesterday, or no.
Fantastic. That is great. Now, what should you actually be saving for? What should you be investing for if you are doing this kind of on behalf of your kids? So putting aside the educational purposes of that.
Yes.
If you were to take a different approach and, say, set a goal to try and invest for your kids, how far into the future is it a good idea to look? Are we talking about kind of a deposit on their first home when they're 21, or do you kind of see more people doing it for the more immediate things like school fees, which might come up in the next few years?
Look, everyone is different. Their value system is different, whether they value a public-private system or whether it's even accessible to them when where they live versus, buying a property or just having some money to help pay for emergency expenses or medical expenses. Everyone is different, so don't worry about what other people are doing. The one thing I will immediately point out, though, is whatever that goal might be, make sure you're investing in the right asset class for that goal. So say, for example, I am saving up, say, $3,000 for my son because I know he needs braces, and that's an expensive exercise. Because I know that I'm going to need that $3,000 within, say, the next 5 years, I would never want to go and put that $3,000 or even $100 of that money that I'm trying to use to build up to $3,000 into a high-growth investment asset such as shares or in property even. Obviously, I can't really do that with $3,000 for property, but you don't want to be taking something that's got high volatility in the short to medium term.
Yeah.
But say, for example, I was thinking, I would love to be able to help my son, pay for, say, university education when he's 18, 19. Well, I've got the benefit of time, so I can potentially, depending on my risk profile and my son's risk profile, invest in something like that's high growth and obviously highly volatile through shares and, say, property, because we've got the benefit of time to see through all the peaks and troughs of the natural market movement. So be very careful of your time frame and investing in the right asset class, because you don't want to suddenly, say I bought $3,000 of the shares and that stock or that particular investment portfolio came off and it's now worth, say, $2,100. I'm $900 short to pay for his orthodontist bill. Yep. That's going to be an issue. So that's why you've got to understand the different asset classes and what's right for you.
And that's probably a good point as well for someone to get some professional advice.
Exactly.
Really, isn't it? When you're starting to compare asset classes and compare your goals and the different durations and how long you're going to have that money invested, a professional can really help you with that.
And also what your comfort levels are when it comes to investing. Obviously, some people are experienced with investing. They've owned shares before. They understand and they're making educated, informed risks based on experience, whereas some people are new to investing and new to managing their money in a more mindful way, that is why you've got to sort of understand the difference between the asset classes and the different risk levels as well.
All right, some good tips. We'll be back in a moment with a few more. Okay, so going back a little bit, where's the money coming from? If you're investing for your kids, we talked about budgets and we've talked about kind of making sure that you're allocating money to your groceries and all of these important kind of things that you need to. Do you put the kids in as one of those elements for your weekly thing? Or is there another way you can do it as well, which is kind of often grandparents will want to know what to give the kids for birthdays or even when they're born. Is that an opportunity to say, hey, I'm thinking about investing on behalf of little Timmy, to pick a name, can you help out?
Look, it's really what you want to do. There's no wrong or right. Obviously, when you budget in the children's like investment portfolios or saving habits, you prioritize it being done. So, you say, well, every time we get paid on the 15th of every month, we'll allocate $200 to the kids' savings accounts. If you do that, it's more likely to actually happen.
Yeah.
Or you can simply do what I do is I don't budget in my kids' investment portfolios. When I happen to have some spare money where I've saved some money or you've done a side hustle and got some extra money or sold something or whatever it might be, I then might go and top up their savings account to go and then invest. Or the other option is obviously you say to family and friends, let's reduce our landfill. If you want to buy them a present, great, but you know what would be of really great value to little Timmy or to our family's financial well-being? Would you like to contribute towards their education or their investment portfolio, which will help fund their education? So there's no wrong or right. It's about what's right for you. And I think really investing some time up front to explore what you guys would like to do for your kids and what will serve them in the best way possible is the solution there.
Is there a downside to getting the kids involved in the decisions or making them aware that you're saving for? And this is the kind of scenario that I'm thinking of, that if a child knows that mum and dad are saving for helping to save for their first home, can you create a bit of a spoilt child?
Brat.
A brat. There we go. Yeah. Can little
brat.
Timmy become a brat?
I think it's all in the way that you do it. Like, if I said to my children, I'm going to buy each of you, I'm going to give each of you, not buy each an apartment, or if I said to them, I'm going to give you each of a deposit, I mean, every child is different. One child might go, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm so incredibly grateful. I'm going to work really hard to do this as well. The other one might go, great, where's my deposit? I'm going to find an apartment right now. Like, you've got to use your intuition and your understanding of different ages and obviously the lifestyle and the environment children are around. You've got to be smart. But I think it's really powerful to use it as an educational tool and to say, I mean, I'm not going to give my children a deposit on a silver plate. There's no way whatsoever. My children are going to learn hard work. And they obviously look at myself and Tom and see us working really hard, and I hope that rubs off on them. But I think for when it comes to children, and particularly this hot topic of property, is, maybe you say, well, look, we'd love to match you dollar for dollar.
Yeah.
Because I remember, and I remember a school friend of mine came from an extremely wealthy family, and they bought her an apartment, and it came with a mortgage, a very small mortgage, and she couldn't do it. She couldn't understand what a mortgage was, how to work, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure her parents she got herself into a bit of a mess. I think her parents ended up paying off the mortgage for her.
Really?
How does that help her in any way possible? It's enabling.
Yep.
So I think that's really important to actually use it as an educational tool. It's not something that's guaranteed necessarily. You as a parent have control of the money. You talk to them about it, and it's an educational tool, and you teach gratitude. And also about, as I say, charity. Yes, I hope to help my children in some capacity, but it won't necessarily be a deposit. I might be able to help them with their university or tertiary education, whatever it might be, or it might be to help them go traveling around the world. We've got to be very open-minded.
And okay, where do you put it in the pecking order of family finances? There's a lot of pressures on your money, and there's only so much money to go around. Where does investing for the kids fit?
Look, to be honest, I think it should sit quite far down. Is it Maslow's theory? The hierarchies? Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yep. We're really ranging here from little Timmy to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Kind of.
Exactly.
We're really covering everything, aren't we?
But you need to make sure that obviously the family's financial well-being is paramount. Like being able to obviously healthy, nutritious food on the table goes first before your child's deposit that they'll need in 20 years' time. Like, come on, we've got to be switched on here and intelligent. So, obviously the family has goals as well. We want to be able to also enjoy life. Like I would rather have a weekend away with my kids today than put, say, $1,000 into my son's investment portfolio or my daughter's investment portfolio. So it's about balance, and that doesn't mean it's one or the other, but say I might sell something on Gumtree and I come up with $800. I might put, say, $500 towards the family, and then the remaining amount goes into the kids' educational funds or whatever it might be. Yeah. So it's not black and white. It's a bit of everything, and just finding that mindful balance depending on what's going on in the finances.
It's an interesting topic, isn't it? Because not everyone's going to have kids. Exactly. And so if you have it kind of low down the priority, then you can kind of talk really then about the common needs that pretty much everyone is going to have in terms of housing, food, medical, all of that kind of thing. Then this is almost discretionary kind of additional money that might come in. Then you can look at how that might play out for the kids.
And it's fluid. It also depends on that goal. Obviously, if you've got, for example, that orthodontic bill coming in, you might have to obviously say, okay, well, we're not going to go on a weekend away because that is a priority. It goes further up the pecking order. So it's fluid.
Okay. What's the one thing that we need to take away from this week's episode? What do you want us to think about?
Well, it's never too early to start investing, whether it be yourself or your children, but it is a great educational tool beyond the financial and monetary gift of that investment portfolio for your children. It's a very, very powerful educational tool that builds a fantastic foundation for your children that will serve them for the rest of their lives. So start thinking about it, even if you don't necessarily want to do anything yet.
I love the idea of using it as an educational tool, because then you can be doing it with very small amounts and you are still teaching the same lessons as if you're doing it with much, much, much larger figures.
Absolutely. And children are sponges. My son loves having a look at his investment portfolio and understanding and seeing it. And sure, a lot of it probably goes in one ear and out the other, but each time we do this, I'm noticing he's really interested and he's asking questions now.
Yeah, kids are sponges. You should hear some of the language that our kids have picked up from us, which are things that we wish they didn't actually hear, but they do. They absorb everything and then they'll repeat it at a christening or something like that, which, true story, did not end well. All right. Thank you for listening to How Do They Afford That? Remember to hit subscribe or follow and leave us a review too. Next week, we are talking all about budgeting. It will be a cracker. Don't miss it.